Okay, so I'm the only one keeping you from lunch because I could speak for 2 days about the building, which I'm not going to do. I have the obligation to do it in less than 30 minutes, which is a bit of a challenge to get the real story across. And I'm first going to make a very honest statement. When we started this building, we had no clue it would turn out to be the most sustainable or smartest. Honestly, not. We were thinking, we'll do some funny stuff. And maybe, the first 3 months some people will come and look at, it's a new building, or why not. It became viral, so this is the 721st presentation in the last 2 years. And they're not all the same. Actually, I stopped talking about the edge. I'm talking about what we do next. But I was asked to talk about the edge here, so we'll cover that, and then I will close with one slide on a little bit of the future. I was working for Deloitte. It's not very important who I am, but just to give you the context. I was working for Deloitte for 22 years as their CIO. That means I was in charge of technology, had nothing to do with buildings, other than putting in some cable stuff and wireless and whatever. But 6-7 years ago, they asked me also to run a facilities operation, which by coincidence included real estate. And after 3 weeks I got the job, they told me, Erik, we got news for you. We want to build a new location in Amsterdam. Okay, thank you. Maybe you should have told me before I accepted this job. I could have given a little thought, because this is of course a huge adventure. And we got 3 locations in Amsterdam at Deloitte, and we moved them into one. Basically, at the day we signed, Lehman Brothers went down. So that was a very, very bad moment to start building a building. Unfortunately, the city of Amsterdam does not allow you to build on speculation, so you can only build if you do have a tenant. So OVG, the company I now work for, did have, of course, Deloitte as a tenant, but we at Deloitte thought this is bad. I mean, the whole, the accounting banks, they all already have what's called a negative press at minimum. It's not such a good idea to build a flagship. So we were able to play and not agree with the building and not agree with it and not agree with that. So we extended that up till 2011 before we actually start building the building. I have an engineering background in electronics, and that's important to say because I think you will see that that was driving what we were doing here. I'm not in front of the slide, I'm over here. So that's the building. For those who haven't seen it, I'm sure you've seen a lot of it. Most of the people say, oh, you're the guy from the edge. Of course, I did not do this on my own. We had a lot of people involved. The real estate developers, the architects, my IT organization, and the facilities group I have at Deloitte. So we built this location, and during that process we decided, so it's a very bad home to build, so let's make sure that it's absolutely number one in sustainability. Because we have to explain to at least to the Dutch people that we are not showing off with a big new building, but that we really try to contribute something to the environment and the industry by building a smart, sustainable building. It's wobbling. I hope the building is not wobbling like that. Well, we can build a new one with all the learning. So, and from day one, we wanted to make sure this would attract people. The biggest thing Deloitte knew at that time, we will have a huge fight for talent. Maybe not at that moment, but going forward. So the building should not only be a building which is efficient from a Deloitte facility and from an asset perspective, but how do we make sure the building is becoming a part of the story we want to tell, and also about how we want to attract people. And Deloitte was at crisis also at that time, because this whole accounting industry was a lot of pressure, a lot of negative press, as you probably all remember, together with the bankers. And Deloitte decided to move this whole 240,000 company into another company by 2020. So the whole philosophy strategy is by 2020 they want to be the #1 technology consulting company. So that, together with some ambitions I had with electronics and playing around with the Internet of Things and sensors and stuff, we decided to make the building a showcase for technology. A little bit, this is the mandatory stuff you have to do if you talk about your company. So this is OVG. I joined OVG, as you can imagine now. So we did that building.
The guy who owns this company moved into the building as well because it was their flagship, it was their advertisement. And every time I run into the coffee area with him, he said, "Oh, Erik, we have to talk. You have to come and work for me." And I was not a real estate guy. I said, "Yeah, I'm going to work for a real estate company. What are we going to do? Create empty buildings?" Because if you're on the 14th floor in the edge, you could look on the business district in Amsterdam, and the only thing you see for hire, building empty buildings. And he said, "Erik, you don't have a clue about real estate, so let's have a dinner and I will explain." And then he explained to me, "You're right. It's all empty space, a lot of empty offices in the Netherlands. But you know what? That's not because I cannot rent out office, but I cannot rent out the office we built in the 80s and 90s. It's all bad quality. It's not sustainable. It's not what people like to work in. If we build edges like we did with you, we will be able to rent them out." So the company changed from building as sustainable offices for very long. They started to build sustainable in 2004, which means they decided not to build if it's not sustainable. So that's in their heritage, in their DNA. But as you can imagine, by now, everybody is building sustainable, I guess, more or less. So we consider that a bit of a commodity. I like to talk about technology, and that is, of course, when you talk about smart, we will cross technology. But we all know that the real big thing in the future, happening to now already, is the well-being of people in your offices. So the offices need to be healthy, they have to have clean air, people have to control about temperature, about light, about noise. They need to like to go to the office to the extent they still go to the office. At Deloitte, nobody goes to the office to work 8-9 hours on a desk. It simply does not exist anymore. And I think this is true for the City of London most of the time. You go to the office to meet colleagues, to have a face-to-face meeting if still necessary, or to meet with customers. So you get into the office, you work on a desk for half an hour, not your desk, then you would go to a meeting room, have a business meeting, then maybe you go out for lunch, maybe you work for another couple of hours, you go to the fitness, whatever you do, talk to colleagues, and then off to home. So an office is becoming a meeting space. And of course that needs to be a very healthy, nice place to attract the people we're all looking for. So that's basically what the company is betting on, 3 pillars. And now, but I want to go the other way around. Should I completely move? Should I start in the last slide? Can you move it forward for me? Ah, there it is. Now I want to go back. So, we started off with having a clear vision. Of course, the sustainable. I don't want to talk about that too much. It became the most sustainable building. That's a nice story to tell. We did a BREEAM. You're familiar with BREEAM. BREEAM, LEED, Well-being, Living Building Challenge. There are more than 100 of those things now in the world. Everybody's trying to make some money out of that, I guess. It's like an ISO certification for me. You need the stamp. People ask for it. What's the real value? There's no BREEAM people here. It's just costing a lot of money. Nevertheless, going through that build process to get a BREEAM for new build, that's a huge amount of work. There are auditors all the time, there are people, you have to document the transportation, the waste, everything on the build site, the animals, the plants, all of the stuff. There's a lot of work to be done, and every time they measure where you are and you get the score, and then of course you can still see, hey, can I do a little bit better? Maybe add a little bit of solar panels, or maybe do something with regeneration of water. So we moved slowly but surely from 85 to 94%, which is pretty good compared to a lot of other buildings, but not number one. About 3 months before we were about to move into the building, we had another audit from BREEAM, and they said, you are very close to be number one. So, okay, what do we need to do? Well, this and this and this will cost another 300,000 euros, but if you spend another 300,000 euros on the building, you will be number one in the world. Now, the board told me, Erik, you're going to build a building, and like IT, which we know from you, from experience, on time, within budget, no surprises. To be honest with you, in the building process, I went back 9 times for asking for more. When we put in a climate ceiling compared to a normal ceiling, 6 times more expensive than a traditional ceiling. The light system with Philips is 3 million euros. There was 1.1 million in the original budget for the light system, which was a traditional LED, and we built a whole different LED system. So I thought, okay, probably they're not going to open the door for me when I ask for another meeting. So I told my fellow colleagues in the management team, listen, the next week's management meeting with the board, you're going to shut up when they do the roundtable at the end of the meeting. You're not going to ask questions because I need 15 minutes from those guys, and they're not going to ask for time because they know if I ask for time, it will cost money. So exactly happened. So the management meeting, the board was going on, and we were like 10 minutes to 11, we were done. I said, hey, this is a prize, we are done. I said, oh, wait a minute, I have a question for you if you have some couple of minutes to spare. And they had, of course. I said, Erik, this is not about the building, is it? Well, it is. Why? Well, you know what? We are very close to being number one in sustainability. And just a small additional investment, we would become number one. So no. We did the ceiling, we did the aquifer thermal, we did the solar panels, we did this and this. This is enough. He said, no, listen. We would beat Price Waterhouse in London. Oh, go ahead, do it. So that's how you sell stuff to grown-up men. Of course, productivity. Everybody talks about productivity in modern buildings. I'm an IT guy. I never ever use the word productivity to sell any piece of technology to my board because I think it's extremely hard to prove. I think we don't have enough data to actually see whether that's true or not. We know it does attract a lot of new talent. 62% of the people applying at the job at Deloitte in the Netherlands, in their application online, mention the fact they want to work in the Edge in Amsterdam. When I left school, I was happy I got a job. And now these people can just say, hey, if you can't work in the Edge, I don't want to work for you, which is an amazing thing. Of course, I talked about health and happiness of employees. The data generation is an important thing. So without knowing what would happen exactly, I wanted to make sure that the building was smart. And I learned at that time that when real estate people talk about smart a couple of years ago, they mean energy smart. So you would have some sub-metering and metering on the electricity, on gas or water, whatever you do. And if you're a little bit sustainable, you would have a smart building. And I thought, but this doesn't do nothing for the people in the building. It doesn't do anything for me as a facilities guy. So you know what, let's hook up everything to the internet. Deloitte wants to be a technology consulting firm. Everybody's talking about Internet of Things. I love Internet of Things. I'm an electronics guy. Let's just hook up everything to the internet. That was a bit of a challenge because half of the stuff you can buy is actually connected to the internet. Half of the stuff is not connected to the internet. So we went out and looked for coffee machines which were really connected to the internet, for towel machines which were really connected to the internet, for chairs, for desks, for lockers, for refrigerators, for just anything we could imagine. So what we actually did, and I'm not saying because we were smart or forward thinking, but just as a concept, all of the stuff which was related to the building, like the elevators and the light system and the power distribution, all the traditional key components of a building, they would have been connected to the internet anyway because they would be smart. But all of the tenant stuff is typically not connected to the internet, and we decided to do it. And then we decided to combine that into a single app. I will come back to that. Of course, there's a building management system behind it. I don't even know why I mentioned that here, but I assume you know there are building management systems in the building. And of course, at the end of the day, which is very important, and we prove that now with the Edge and with the other buildings we do, we can drive down cost. So we invest initially a little bit more, to be precisely about 8% more than we planned on this location, but we earn it back. Okay? If I don't forget, I will give you some examples. So, a little bit about the sustainability on how we did it with the building. The building, as you see in the picture, is a U-shaped design, which means it's an open U, which is facing northeast, which means when the sun rises in the morning, about 70% of the desks have natural daylight. People love natural daylight. They're more active, they feel more happy, and it saves you a bit of energy. I wouldn't say a lot, because electricity on light, especially if you do LED, is not a huge amount of cost on a building. Nevertheless, so there's one little problem. If the sun starts to rise and it becomes lunchtime, there's a tremendous heat intake into the building. Especially if all the buildings in the area are built from glass, which you see a lot nowadays, and most buildings are completely from glass. That's not such a smart idea, because BREEAM and LEED and all of those guys, they demand from you that your facades, the outside of the buildings, are completely insulated. They're totally locked down. And you could say that's a good thing because you save energy. It's actually not true, because you get so much heat into the building that during daytime you have to cool it out, and cooling is the most expensive thing you can do in a building. The problem is at night, because it doesn't leak, the building does not even go down to a normal temperature again. So you get a huge buildup, which is actually counterproductive, if you like. So The architect figured out to have the facade on the south and southwest to be much, much less glass. So it's only 60% open, which is very little compared to most of the other buildings, okay? And on the piece which is closed, there are solar panels. So on the roof and on the facade, there are solar panels, 5,900 square meters of solar panels, enough to power the building, the electric cars, and the system in the building. There are people who say that the building is energy positive. That is true, 102%, but that's the building. As soon as you put people in a building, it's a whole different story. I just want to make sure that we're honest about that and you get that. So if anybody says, I got an energy positive building, yeah, for sure, you know, with the climate system and maybe the light and some other stuff you do related to the building, but as soon as you put people in there and you got computers and coffee machines and all of the other stuff, it becomes very hard still to make a completely energy efficient, neutral, sustainable building. So we got solar panels on the facade. There were articles written in Dutch newspapers about how stupid we were. We don't understand solar panels because we put them on the facade. Solar panels would look at the sun, and they're very inefficient if you put them on the facade, which is absolutely true. But the facade, I learned the last year, now I'm in the real estate development, is the most expensive part of building a building. In Europe, roughly between 700 and 1,200 euros a square meter to build a facade. Okay? Now the interesting thing, that is always finished with either aluminium, glass, some composite material, some beautiful looking marble, whatever. Doesn't do anything for you, but it costs roughly 200 to 300 euros out of the whole package. So the facade is, of course, the construction, the installation material, the inside, the outside part of it. So interestingly enough, solar panels are only costing 150 euros a square meter. It's cheaper. So even if the solar panel would never do anything, it would still save you money. The interesting thing is, and it's ugly, by the way, because they're all these bluish, but you now can buy them in color. Right? You can buy them in printed, you can buy them in all kinds of different fashions, so that's getting better and better. The interesting thing is that we calculated with an efficiency of 5%, which is really bad on a solar panel, and typically they're 16, 17%, but it's now proven in the last 2 years they're close to 12%. So we actually earn money with them. So it's very easy to do. And then the other thing, we have an aquifer thermal energy in a huge atrium. Everybody who's in real estate, whether they're brokers or developers or tenants, they come into the building, they see the atrium and say, you must be out of your mind. This huge atrium is costing a lot of energy, it's a lot of waste, it's a lot of space. That is the typical thought about atriums in a building. But the atrium is the ultimate secret of why the building became so sustainable. So in the building, we put something in which is called a climate ceiling, which means the ceiling is made out of metal sheet, and it carries little tubes on every panel. So not the cheap, you know, the carton board drop-down ceilings you typically see in a building with metal sheet, cast metal sheet ceiling, which is tremendously expensive, and then it carries water. What it actually does, in the summer, we take cold water out of the earth, about 130 meters deep in Amsterdam, and that's about 10 degrees Celsius. That's being pumped through the ceiling and absorbs the heat in the building, and it cools down the building. That same water is stored in a well in the earth, in the crust of the earth, and in wintertime, we get it back, and it's still about 18 degrees over the last 2 winters, 18, which means we only have to heat it up with heat pumps a little bit, and the heat pumps can be run on the solar, even in the wintertime. So that makes a system which actually collects heat out of the building in the summer and releases in the winter, so over the seasons, which is a very interesting thing. That's one part of it. Second, the ceiling there's all little holes in the ceiling, of course, to make the convection working. So when we breathe and sweat and we've got computers and the heat gets warm, the heat travels through the ceiling and automatically travels into the atrium. There's no enforced cooling system. There are no, you see them always in movies, these big tunnels or funnels or whatever you call them, where people crawl to. I never seen a big one where I can crawl to, but there are of these things. And of course, that's a big part of the installation and a big part of the cost of energy. It's not there. So it's a natural flow, which means the air flows through the ceiling, flows into the atrium, goes to the top level of the atrium, and then is kicked out of the building, more or less, with a climate wheel, which is a heat exchange. So the warm air runs through the wheel gets hot, the wheel turns slowly, and the other air, the clean air, is taken in through the same wheel, pushed into the building at the bottom level. So you get a complete natural flow. And this is why the building saves 70% of its energy. I'm spending way too much time, I think, on this. Nevertheless. Okay, back to the smartness and the intelligence in the sensors. I've got 28,000 sensors in the ceiling, plus another 13,000 in machines, which means coffee machines, toilets, towels, water taps, building access, parking systems, audiovisual, digital signage, whatever. Everything was connected. That's funny, but then you have one little problem, because all of these people who make these kind of gadgets or technologies, if you like, they have an app. Everything has an app. Imagine this, you would join Deloitte on the first day, on Monday morning, you come into the office, thank you so much, nice for having you. By the way, if you now download 21 apps, you can order coffee, you can go to the restroom, you may find a desk, you may find your colleague. That doesn't work. So very quickly we start to realize we needed one single app to cross the technology of the building with the tenant technology. And again, we did that because we thought it was necessary and not because we were so damn smart. It just happened to us. Okay, we found two guys in Delft at the Delft University, which is, we call it the MIT of the Netherlands. Actually, I think they're smarter than an MIT, but they don't have such a big mouth as I have. But so this company is called MapIQ, Map Intelligent Quotient. What they actually did originally is mapping a building, making a floor plan, and be able to find your colleagues in a totally flex desk environment. Okay, so if you don't have your own desk, you don't have your own work booth, whatever, you find the desk in the morning. Of course, you have to find a way, how do I know the desk is empty? How do I know where my colleagues are? And this is what these guys were doing. At that time, there were two people. We just started the company. I run into them. They're now 28 people, have a venture capitalist, and are now selling to Unilever, Philips, Shell, all of the universities. So they're becoming very big and fast, and we still work with them. But you've been walking around, I guess, here, and you see there's a whole bunch of people who start doing this kind of technologies. So from the single app, you can do anything you want. Whether you want to order a pizza, a dry cleaner, a chauffeur, have a complaint about something that's not working, book a room, control the audiovisual, control the blinds, checking in on your desk, ordering coffee. You can still order coffee without the app. But the nice thing is it will remember the coffee preference you had. So once you order it and you put your phone to it the next day, or to any other coffee machine in Deloitte now, because we bought the same machines in every office now, the machine will remember what you like in the morning and in the afternoon. It's just fun. But people talk about it. This is interesting. These young people talk about it. And they go to their friends at the university and to others and say, hey, I got this great stuff at the office. You come and work for Deloitte. Of course, nobody comes and works just for the coffee machine. Huh? But I mean, it's the whole story behind it. So one part is having everything connected to the internet on the same IP backbone as the corporate stuff. We are now building Unilever's headquarters in New York, and we build for ING in Amsterdam, and we have a lot of discussion. 2 seconds or minutes? Oh, cool. There's a huge difference between saying I connect this in a separate backbone, in a separate IP environment for my building, or I do it on the corporate. We decided to do it on corporate, but I see there's still a lot of debate. Some of the modern buildings do have 11 different networks. That's ridiculous. A network for the elevators, a network for the alarm, a network for the Wi-Fi. That's, if you talk about sustainability, it's not only about energy efficiency, but in my mind, also about reducing the material, the amount of electronics, the amount of waste you produce over time. I have to move on. So we got one app, which is the good news, and we also have one data analytics platform. Now, if you walk around here, you see a lot of people talking about data analytics, which is fine, and about sensors, but there's one little problem. The facility manager and the people who run the building have so many different tools to run the building, it's ridiculous. Again, I did not build that at that time because we were going to the market. Now, of course, we build this again at OVG and go to the market with it. One tool, one analytics for anything in the building, from the building management system, the elevators, power distribution, coffee machines, and it's a great story. The most important thing, so you see Internet of Things and data analytics and all of that stuff going on. I don't have to explain that. You read about it, you hear about it. It's going to be a revolution. fourth industrial revolution. The big thing behind Internet of Things and data analytics going forward is what they call machine learning. What means that the computers in the cloud will be able to analyze the data you generate from all the different systems, and that will automatically learn. So that's something we did in the proof of concept with Microsoft in the Edge. For example, all of the caterings throughout Deloitte are run by the same company. So all of the offices. Same price, same food, same kind of people. And after 3 days, the system told us, are you aware of the fact that people in Amsterdam spend 30% more on lunchtime than people in Rotterdam? Why? Same lunch, same price, same people. Any idea why? Of course we did not know why. We only saw the transaction on the cash register. So then we started to dive into it, and we found out that people in Amsterdam are eating healthier. More fresh smoothie, more fresh salads, less French fries, there's a Dutch thing called croquette. In the past it had something to do with meat, but I can guarantee you there's probably no meat in there anymore. But that's the kind of things I can go over for an hour, but we don't have the time. What you basically want to do is when you wake up in the morning, if you allow it, because it's all your choice, the app will tell you, yeah, you got a meeting in the Edge today, and because of traffic, you have to spend 10 minutes more. Or maybe you can save 10 minutes because there's no traffic jam, or the train is delayed. Not because you tell it, but because the system starts to recognize it because of your behavior. And you can imagine you can do a lot of stuff with that. All of the systems in the building try to optimize by themselves. But what we really are looking for is optimizing across all of those systems. Okay, so we have a heating and cooling system, and we know that it's better to keep the windows closed. Okay, and if it's warm, to put the shades down instead of having the cooling system running faster. Okay, that's the kind of stuff we can save a lot of energy with. I have one slide to finish, relatively on time for my doing. And this is because I also I like future, and this is about future prop, agree? So the Edge is done, great. We're now doing things which are, let me not overreact, 10 times better than the Edge. 5 times better than the Edge. We learned a lot from it. We made mistakes, we fixed those, and we're now doing a better job. But this is, I think, one of the things which is very interesting is everybody talks about machine learning and cognitive, which means you get a whole different user interface. Not just an app, it's also the augmented reality. If you want to learn something from augmented reality and see a tremendously nice example, go to YouTube and look at the HoloLens and ThyssenKrupp. ThyssenKrupp is a German elevator manufacturer. They do maintenance on elevators with this kind of stuff, saving 24% on elevator maintenance and making the elevator at the same time more operational. So that's the kind of thinking. So it's not only from design, everybody's talking about BIM and making designs with 3D and with augmented reality, but it's also selling the building with augmented reality, maintaining the building with augmented reality, and even give the facility people an augmented reality glasses on their face, so when they walk through the building they see all the sensor data. If they have a door, what is it called, door crutch? I don't know, what's the English word for it? To open the door? Okay, and you see it's broken, that it immediately tells you this is the brand, this is the product, this is where you can find it and how you replace it. So that's all the kind of stuff which is going on. I'm through my time, sorry. But you can look it up on the internet, and now you find my name, so if you want to hear more about it or talk to us, then more than welcome. Thank you so much for your attention.